Hello, Myriam. How are you?
I'm good, Angela. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Welcome to the show, The Food Apothecary, Food That Heals Your Soul. So today, Myriam is going to share with us about her culture, which is a Jewish culture. The stage is yours. Go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Angela. It's really such a pleasure to be here today and to share what I know and what I love. And it's just such a huge pleasure.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We are happy to have you. So I think you are my only friend who's Jewish, as long as I know. Okay. Because I don't usually ask people's religious orientation. So tell me a little bit about the history of the Jewish culture.
Sure, absolutely. It's a very long, it's a very rich history. It's one of the oldest religions that's been recorded. One thing to note about Judaism is that there's history, what archaeologists know, what historians have found. And then there's also story, what you know about Bible from the Torah. And so what I wanted to talk about today was more about the history, what we actually do know, because the stories we're never really sure. There's a little bit more about miracles, about fantasies, but the history is really what has pretty much been proven. So what has been recorded is that some of the first Jews were a part of the Babylonian Empire. So this is before Christ. The first temple, which was really the center of Jewish culture, was built around the year 516 before Christ. And then this was really the beginning of Judaism. The destruction of that temple was also very important for the history of the Jews. This began their enslavement and a lot of suffering. Later on, they were allowed to rebuild their temple, and this is known as the Second Temple period. Unfortunately, when the Romans took over where they were living around the Second Temple, which was really the center of their culture, of their religion, where they would gather, where they would meet for holidays, around year 70, the temple was destroyed. And this is a really important moment for the Jewish people because this is when the Jewish diaspora began. There's a mass migration of the Jewish people throughout different places in the world. And this is also when we see distinctive groups in the Jewish population. These distinctive groups have different languages, they have different ways of practicing Judaism. They even have different cuisine as well. Because they went to these different places, they were using different ingredients and different ways of preparing things. So the three different groups were Sephardic. And so this group really went towards the Iberian Peninsula. So more Morocco, Spain. So they're using more ingredients. They're incorporating olive oil, tomato. You see those types of Mediterranean ingredients in the recipes. There's the Mizrahi group, which was more in the Middle East, in North Africa. And then for me, my family were Ashkenazi Jewish. So this is in Central and Eastern Europe. And eventually, most of the Ashkenazi Jews did settle in the Pale of Settlement, which was a large portion of Russia. And so this is something that, for hundreds of years, these three groups were a little bit divided and just divided geographically. Afterwards, I think we all know a little bit about World War II. And then this is something that actually brings the Jewish people together. After the tragedies of World War II, there's another mass migration, and this is actually Israel. And with the founding of Israel, this is when these three groups come together. After 2,000 years, they come together and they mesh and they bring back the Hebrew language as well. They modernize it and they modernize their cooking. And you see these ingredients that were somewhat separated for hundreds of years come together, mesh together, the cultures come together, and this is kind of where we are today.
Wow. So because of the destroying of the temple, like there was a migration and then it was mixed into different cuisines and cultures. the different people that who left Israel and then went to different places. And then after World War II, they came back and the three groups were joined again.
Exactly. That's right.
Wow. This is such a rich culture. Like to go and then come back. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And do you see like that many variations in your culture? Like, do you have like some of the, let's say, traditions that were not part of your culture before, but they are now?
So it's interesting that you mentioned that. We're lucky in Montreal because we actually a lot of these different groups. So there's actually quite a large Sephardic community. They were originally more in the Iberian Peninsula, and a lot of them were also in Italy. But there's quite a large community of Sephardic Jews in Montreal. And there's also a large community of Ashkenazi Jews. Uh, and if you ever have the chance to go to Israel, you'll see a lot of these different cultures meshing. The synagogues look different, the cuisines look different, and taste different as well. And yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned something about your great aunt, right? Like she wrote a cookbook.
Yeah. So my family, it's a little bit unique, our migration story. So we were for hundreds of years in Ukraine, which was kind of an extension of the Pale of Settlement. A lot of Ashkenazi Jews were living there during the pogroms, which was just kind of another tragic event. But basically, the Jews were essentially kicked out of the Pale of Settlement and kicked out of Ukraine and Russia in massive numbers. And another mass migration. So my family went from Ukraine to Canada. And then a portion of that family that were in Western Canada decided to come back to Israel even before World War II. So actually, I'm very lucky to have today one of my great great aunt and fell in love there. And she she was actually a writer. She had a column in the local newspaper, and she also wrote cookbooks.
Wow.
So that's what I have today, and that's something that I use in my cooking as well. I love to refer to her recipes, and it's a really special cookbook for me because in almost all of the recipes, she has a little story. Sometimes it's a story about the Jewish culture. Sometimes it's a story about her life. And sometimes it's just why she loves it or why her children love that recipe or how she found out about that recipe. And it's really a nice cookbook that brings together uh, different types of Jewish cuisine as well. And she mentions a lot of Sephardic recipes too. So it's a really nice reference for me.
Now you're keeping her book alive and her legend. She's like a legend in your life. You're keeping her. What's a word for that? I had a word in my head. Kind of like keeping her alive, or you're kind of keeping her legacy alive.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good word.
Yeah, it's you're keeping her legacy alive. That's really cool. And can people go buy this book?
It's funny. I was looking for a copy for one of my cousins recently, and I actually had kind of a hard time finding it because the one that I have, it looks like it was published in the 60s, and it looks like they're no longer publishing it. So, but I did find several excellent secondhand copies online.
Okay. Okay. So
Uh,
if people wants
for
to
sure.
experience, they can go get the books and then the story with the recipe too.
Exactly.
Wow,
Exactly. That's right.
I'm impressed. So tell me more about how is it like Judaism related to, Jewish culture?
So that's a great question. One of the things about Judaism that I think a lot of people know about is kosher. So kosher really is its meaning that it's safe to eat, that it's okay to eat because for Jews there's actually quite a lot of dietary laws, and these are something that's written. And this is actually one of the ways that historians have been able to determine where Jews settled throughout history is by looking at the bones of animals and determining, oh wow, this would have been a Jewish settlement thousands of years ago. So some of the main dietary restrictions, there's quite a few of them, so I won't go through them all. There are certain meats that are banned, for example, pork and shellfish.
Okay.
For other meats that are allowed, that are kosher, for example, chicken or beef, they have to be slaughtered in a specific way and by a specific person as well. And other things that are more common and that would affect you on a daily life is that meat and dairy cannot mix.
Mhm.
So, for example, a cheeseburger, banned,
Yeah.
or pepperoni pizza, that's the worst. And there's actually even a time period for, let's say you have a piece of chicken and you want to have a cheesecake dessert. Most people who are following kosher laws would wait at least 4 to 6 hours between those two things.
Wow. 46 hours.
4 to 6, sorry.
4 to 6. I heard 46.
Yeah.
I was like, what happened? 4 to 6 hours. It's still a lot of time.
I know. It really makes you think about what you want to eat. So one of the ways that comes out in Jewish recipes is that almost all breakfast recipes will be dairy.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. Like all the waffles, all the pancakes are out of the question right away.
So waffles are okay, but for example, you wouldn't have, it would be pretty rare to see a beef sausage on a breakfast menu.
Okay. Sorry. For me, like, egg and milk doesn't already go well because I'm vegetarian. I don't eat eggs. So for me, like, I was like, oh my God. So it's in Jewish culture too. It's a thing.
Ah, so that's interesting. Yeah. So there's, of course, there's meat and there's the dairy. And then there's a whole other category of foods that can mix with both. So, for example, egg is actually one of them. Surprisingly, fish is one of them as well, or flour, most grain, which is one of the reasons that you could make a cake with dairy. So that's very nice. And those ingredients are considered par.
Okay. So how does your birthday celebrations go? I'm during this.
That's a great question. I would say that most people really do choose whether they want to have a meat meal or a dairy meal. And one of the ways that I guess really it's some people would call it a test of obedience, or some people would say that it means that you're kind of constantly thinking about the Jewish culture, you're constantly thinking about Judaism, is that even in school lunches, there are certain days of the week where all of the children at a Jewish school would have a meat lunch.
Okay.
And then there are other days where all of them would be allowed dairy.
Wow. I'm thinking of logistics to put that. Yeah. Wow. You mentioned like either you can have either a meat diet or a dairy diet for your birthday or for like any gathering, I guess, right? Yeah. So is it like on the
Exactly.
guest hand or is it on the host hand to choose that?
It would be on the host typically. Yeah.
Okay. Be on the host. Okay. So they won't cater like both things. Like, okay, there's dairy too, there's meat too, you choose it. It's more like, okay, we're doing a meat ceremony, like we're eating like in this portion or like we're having a cheesecake for birthday. And everybody just adjust their schedule accordingly, I guess. Oh my God.
Exactly. So if you want a cheesecake, then you would have to choose a vegetarian dinner.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I just never knew that. So technically you're a vegetarian sometimes.
Oh yeah, I guess sometimes vegetarian. But yeah, it's some people because it does get complicated to be vegetarian.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And another element for some people that really want to follow all of the kosher rules is that to really ensure that your meat and your dairy are separate, they actually have two sets of dishes.
Two sets of dishes. I
Exactly.
heard that people have two refrigerators.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay.
And so you have dishes that can be used for meat, and same with your utensils.
Okay.
And then the second one will be for kind of everything else.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so this is something I read on internet. Let's say if you go to somebody's house to cook your food or like, bring your own dish and you're making it there, you have to bring your own pans because it's like they're meat pans or they're like dairy pans. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It depends on the person. I find what makes it sort of less complicated if it's always best to ask in advance.
Mhm.
And if you want a safe option, maybe bring wine instead.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Bring wine, yeah, yeah. But wine is allowed, right, in your culture?
Yeah, exactly. Wine is it's actually a big part of some of the ceremony. It's
Okay.
part of the blessings for Shabbat. So definitely wine is kosher. It's allowed.
Well, okay, cool. So, what about the famous breads of Montreal? Because in Montreal we have a huge Jewish community, and then I heard the names of challah bread, bagels and all that stuff. So, can we talk about one of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, challah for me is something that typically you would make every Friday. And it's a bread that you typically eat for Shabbat. So Shabbat is really a day of rest.
And it's usually Friday.
Exactly. It starts Friday at sundown and it ends Saturday at sundown. So it's really a day of rest. You're with your family, you go to temple, there's no electronics, there's no work. It's really a time to be with your family and to rest. So what that means is that all of the preparation must be done in advance. On the Friday morning or at the latest afternoon, you make 2 loaves of challah, one for your Friday evening dinner and one for your Saturday afternoon, your lunch. And some people will even have some at temple as well. And so the challah there's a lot of different variation. For Ashkenazi Jews, it's typically flour, a lot of eggs, which gives a beautiful, rich color, yeast, salt. Those are pretty much the basic ingredients and water. Also, it's a bread that's braided, and so it makes a very pretty bread. And typically there'll be sesame seeds. However, some cultures will have different types of seeds. Sephardic Jews might have anise seeds, or there can be all kinds of different toppings that can go on. You can sometimes see raisins. You can sometimes see poppy seeds. A lot of people will put some salt as well. This is also something that can be delicious. And yeah,
Yeah, I have tried challah bread. I liked it. I think mine was with poppy seeds.
oh, delicious.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. You mentioned, okay, I'm gonna ask you this question actually. So you mentioned that it's a sundown on a Friday. So Friday morning you can work, right?
Exactly.
Friday afternoon you can work. The Friday sundown, no work, just with your family and all that. And
Exactly.
what's the spiritual aspect behind it? Like, is it to spend more time with your family, or is it your body to give rest, or to respect your work, or what is the spiritual aspect?
Well, that's a good question. What we were always taught is that it's a day of rest,
Okay.
just like God did when he created the world. But he also had a day of rest. And day of rest is something that, from what I've read, it's common in a few other religions as well. Sunday is often a day of rest for Christians. Friday sometimes can be a day of rest for Muslims. So it's really a common theme in quite a few religions. And it's Saturday for Jews.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I remember some place I used to work, they would like, we were only allowed to work half day on Friday because it was a Jewish company. As of like 1 p.m., everybody's out. That's it.
That's pretty good for you.
It was good while it lasted. Yeah. But yeah, it's okay. Okay, cool. And like when you're like, do you still practice that? Like, is it something like everybody practice that, or there are like people who choose what they can do?
Something I think you see a lot these days is that there's really a big spectrum for religion. So, for example, some people will eat pork, even though it's not kosher. Some people will never eat pork. Some people might only respect it during certain holidays. But when we were growing up, we always had a Friday and we would light candles, which is part of the tradition as well. And I think that really varies per family, but it's something that I think is really important for me as well, is a time that's really reserved for family.
Okay, that's good. So let's say if somebody wants to know more about the Jewish religion, how can they do that?
Sometimes I find myself looking into different things too. And even to prepare for this today, I was looking into, oh, yeah, what is, uh, things that you hear about when you're a kid and you really wonder, oh, where did that come from? There's, I mean, quite a few very good websites out there. There's Chabad.org, which I often find can be very helpful. My Jewish learning. Sometimes Wikipedia can be good as well for things that are really historically based. And you can always, the great thing about Wikipedia is that you can always look at the sources. So if the sources look accurate, I would say that it's probably pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, so we know now, like, let's say now there are so many, is church is the right word when I refer to a Jewish place of worship.
So it would really be more synagogue.
Senegal. There you go. Okay. Yeah. So if I go to Senegal, because I'm from a different religion, and I come from like different country, is there welcoming behavior, or like is it more reserved for people like who are born into the religion, or is it open to everybody?
Oh, it's definitely open for everybody. On a typical Saturday service, people are always welcome. However, most synagogues will ask that you cover shoulders and wear modest clothing. For men, there's also something called the kippah,
Okay.
which is, I guess, kind of a small hat.
Yes.
But that's something that's provided.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. However, there are times of year, just like Christmas for Christian, the high holiday season is a very, very popular time to go to temple. And then you even sometimes have to buy tickets to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tickets. You have to buy tickets to go to Senegal. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. That's cool. So you guys have your own, how do I say, the holidays like the Passover, Yom Kippur, and then Hanukkah and all those. So I do want to dig into them, but I know we're short of time today, so we'll just finish it here today. Thank you so much for today's podcast, and we will meet soon again whenever the new holidays come along.
Sounds great, Angela. Thank you so much. Such a true pleasure, really. I hope that you've learned or that I've been able to share it with you.
Yes, yes, for sure. I'm pretty sure, like, this will shed a light to Jewish culture itself, to the people who are like, they want to know more, but they don't know where to start from, and then they just don't, they're a little too scared to ask around to like, okay, what should I do? So thank you so much for that, for putting this out there. And then, so this way, I hope it helps to get some knowledge.
Thank you so much, Angela. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
That's all for today's episode of The Food Apothecary. I learned a lot about the different culture and I hope you enjoyed as well. If you like our episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, The Food Apothecary. Please listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Ghana, and many others. Please follow me on Instagram at The Food Apothecary. See you in the next episode. Thank you.